Hi, welcome to Opera Happy Hour. My name is Jeremy Frank. I am the Associate Chorus Master at LA Opera, and I am super excited to invite you to today's episode. Because, as you can see, I have a guest in my living room. It only took 14 months and 4 shots and a little bit of luck to get here. Today, we'll be talking to Jacob Ingbar, who is one of our young artists with the LA Opera Young Artist Program. He comes to us from the Juilliard School and Rice University, where he did his training, and Jake is from Minneapolis, Minnesota. But one of the really interesting things about Jake as a singer is that he is a countertenor. And because of that, I thought he'd be a perfect guest to invite onto tonight's show. First of all, so that those of you who are thinking, what is a countertenor? That's actually going to be our very first question. But there's a ton of stuff that we can learn about both Jacob's voice and the kind of operatic repertoire that he sings. But also we can learn a lot about the Baroque era, which I may have mentioned in a previous episode is the era from which opera is really birthed as a modern art form. And so there's a lot to talk about today. Welcome, Jake.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so truly
my first talk show, so here we go.
I mean, it's also one of my first conversations that isn't on Zoom, so this is pretty darn exciting.
New territory.
So, as you know, one of the hallmarks of this web series is that we pick a theme. Today's theme is what is a countertenor and what is Baroque music. And then we put a drink pairing with all of that. And, today it seemed to me, I'm so lucky to have a countertenor who I can bring on the show. First of all, you guys are so rare. And as you'll hear in the episode, Jacob is a fantastic singer. It's been fun to make music together live, but also with such a great singer. So that's unique and rare. And because of that, I thought we would have a unique and rare drink pairing today. We're actually drinking 2 different kinds of vermouth. Jacob has a white vermouth, a vermouth bianco, and I have a red vermouth that is also chinato, so it has a little spicy flavor. These are not the kinds of vermouth that you put into your Manhattan. Look, we love those kind of vermouths too. They're very functional. But these are a more European style that are, you just sip them by themselves as if you were drinking sherry or brandy, and they're really lovely. It's essentially just a fortified wine, but I think of it as being something very refined and classy, just like I think countertenor singing is very refined and very classy.
I'll take it.
So, too refined and classy, and thank you for joining me. This is so great.
Thank you.
Cheers. So, what is a countertenor?
That's a good question. Different people have different answers, but for me, I try not to get too caught up on the semantics of it all. Mm-hmm. Some people say male alto, some people say sopranist, any of that vocabulary, but I consider myself a countertenor. And basically what it refers to is the register and the range that I sing in. Mm-hmm. And so I sing, it's really the highest male voice type. It's higher than a tenor. Mm-hmm. And we sing with, what I would say is my falsetto voice. All men can do it, but I have just cultivated it in such a way that, some people say reinforced falsetto. Uh-huh. I've sort of cultivated that particular aspect of my voice to create a range and a tessitura and sort of an idiom that I sing in.
Since we're at the piano, I can actually show our audience, approximate pitch ranges
Sure.
of the different voice types. So, like if we have a bass or a bass baritone, they are likely to be using these notes as part of their what they sell the opera world. A tenor is about a half an octave higher from C to C, so to speak. And I would guess, we've never actually talked about this, but I'm guessing that you're at least from G to maybe top F or G?
Yeah, that's sort of like the 2 octave range that I typically sing in.
I certainly don't mean to cheapen what you do, but this falsetto sound, though it sounds like something that's super exotic, it occurs all over pop culture and commercial music culture.
Oh yeah,
we could think of Freddie Mercury or
totally Frankie Valli.
Yeah.
I mean, even Michael Jackson. I think it's sort of an extended vocal technique in a certain sense, where it is a particular color and aesthetic. It's a little bit ethereal, it's a little bit mysterious and genderless in a way.
Yeah.
So it's definitely common in many different styles. I just happen to use it in an operatic manner.
Yeah. If we go back to the first century that opera existed, or really the first 130 or 150 years or so, the Baroque era, part of the reason that countertenors exist now is because there was a different practice that existed back then, writing for men who sang very, very high. Those guys were called castrati, and if you've got just a little bit of imagination, you can guess what that might imply. It is exactly what it sounds like. Part of the reason that process was done to young men who were prepubescent was so that they would continue to grow into adult men, but that the vocal development or the voice breaking or dropping to a conventional octave would be arrested. And how is that different from what you do? Because there's some significant differences there.
Yeah, I mean, the first is there's no surgery involved.
Right.
The second is, my larynx, my vocal folds themselves have matured. They have grown, so that's no longer the size they were when I was a boy and as a boy soprano. So you're dealing with a fully, mature instrument in terms of the voice, but also the rest of the body, the rib cage, the pharynx, all of the things that sort of go into making an operatic sound, a sound.
Yeah. Part of the reason that this all captures our imagination so much is because of the repertoire that was written for those singers, which overlaps to a certain degree what modern countertenors tend to sing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we, as a countertenor, we sing a lot of Baroque repertoire. That's sort of the meat and potatoes of what we do. And what that entails then is a lot of the castrato repertoire. So part of the facility that we try and cultivate in our training is to be able to sing very long phrases, coloratura, to have a really agile instrument that can do all sorts of ornamentation and expression that is required in the Baroque repertoire.
That's a great point. And it's worth mentioning, of course, every era of opera, just like every era of literature and every era of painting, has its own set of aesthetics. In many ways, the Baroque era isn't particularly known for its very realistic approach to depicting emotions. A lot of times, they were following something called the doctrine of the affect. So each song that you sing, each aria that you sing, will typically have an A section which depicts one and only one emotion. And then if the composer and the librettist wanted to show something contrasting or some other piece of drama within that song, they'd give you a B section with contrasting music. And then you would repeat the A section with all of these pyrotechnic moves that you described, the coloratura. But really, in a lot of ways, it's focused very much on the singer and the singer as a vocal athlete in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I think, the drama is still very much important. It's not just theatricality for theatricality's sake. So much of what I love about the Baroque repertoire is the ownership that the artist gets to put onto the music and infuse the character with. We're given a game plan, and you can sort of see the affects in how they've been laid out by the composer. But within ornamentation, you can put in an appoggiatura, you can do certain things that change the harmony, and that can create a more emotional and more psychological interpretation, in the music itself. So
we've got 3 really beautiful excerpts for you today, sort of representing the bookends of the Baroque era. So why don't we start at the beginning, so to speak, with a piece from an opera by Cavalli called La Callisto. And Jacob, could you tell us a little bit about this piece and what it's about?
Yeah, La Callisto is a beautiful opera. It was actually the very first Baroque opera I ever did. So it sort of holds a special place for me in that sense. And the aria, the selection that we've chosen, is called Lucidissima Face, which is sung by the character Endymione, who is a shepherd boy and an aspiring astrologer. And, you know, in the opera, he meets the goddess Diana, and, you know, they fall smitten with each other sort of immediately. And this aria comes in the next act when he is singing to the moon in all of its splendor, and hopes that he will be reunited with Diana in his dreams.
So for our next stop orally through the Baroque era, I thought we'd actually jump to the other end of the time frame and go to a guy, George Frederick Handel, who was one of the biggest superstar composers of opera in the 18th century at all, but particularly of the late Baroque era. He wrote tons of opera, didn't he?
He wrote absolutely tons, and oratorio, and, you know, I grew up listening to a lot of the American Songbook, and Handel is truly one of the great melodists, I think, ever. You know, like Gershwin, like, you know, so many others. The amount of melodies that are just stunningly beautiful that come out of his work is unparalleled. For those of you at home who are thinking, this Handel guy, he sounds familiar. If you've ever heard or sung the Hallelujah chorus from the Messiah, that's the guy we are praising very highly. Yes.
It's interesting that you talk about Handel as a melodist. I absolutely agree. And some of his slow songs are very beautiful, but I like Handel best when he's a little spicy and a little faster, which is kind of what we've got today.
Yes. The next aria is Lusinghiera mia speranza. It's from Agrippina, one of Handel's operas. And in this scene, the character Ottone has just returned, and he has brought the news that Claudius has survived, and who is the king? Or the emperor? Claudius has survived, and that he has named Ottone as his successor. And Ottone reveals to Agrippina that he is in love with Poppaea.
Lusinghiera
final musical example that we'd like to leave you with today, for me, is one of the most beautiful pieces of music that we're performing today. I've played this song for you several times now. Also, if I'm not mistaken, for your audition for this very program.
I was shocked. I had it on my aria package, list of 5 arias for my final audition here, and I'd sung actually 2 Handel arias previous. And I thought I was done basically, and then they said, actually, wait one more second. I actually think it may have been Susan that requested.
She may have.
I think she was the one, because I was
Susan Graham
I was
may
almost
have asked for
walking
this.
off stage. We don't have to include that, but there was some sort of last minute. Well, why don't we listen to this piece? And it's a really beautiful piece. It shows a lot of sort of exposed vocal beauty, simplicity. In the English Baroque, you don't always have as much ornamentation, but there's definitely room for word painting.
And let me just tell you, audience at home, Jacob's being a little bit modest here. Auditions are strange. We were on the stage of the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion. I think we had probably said maybe 25 words to each other at that point of knowing each other. And the song starts very starkly, and it reveals immediately if somebody is a musician or not, in a very deep-hearted sense of the word. So I decided I was going to play as musically as I could, just to see what you might do. And you outstripped every expectation that I could have had, and I think you made a big impression, not just on me, but on all of us as you sang it.
Thank you.
When you agreed to do this show, I knew we had to hear you do it.
It's a piece I love to sing, because some people know it, some people don't, but I can instantly sort of has an entrancing sort of quality about the work, the music
absolutely.
itself. It comes from actually Sophocles' play Oedipus, and it was written as incidental music by Purcell, and in the piece itself, in the context of the play, there's this sorcerer conjuring up a spell. So it actually has sort of dark undertones, although it's often just revered as sort of this, an emblem of just, beautiful lyric writing that praises the beauty of music, and it's sort of self-referential in a way. So there's many layers, you can sort of build into it, and it's very typical of Purcell's style to sort of have all these onomatopoeia sort of text painting,
which you'll definitely hear in the middle section
in
here.
the piece. So it's fun to sing. I bring it sort of often in my book, as we say, just because I think it works on many levels.
Absolutely. I'm sure you'll agree. Here's how that beautiful song sounds. Thank you so much. That is such a spellbinding piece of music. I absolutely love it, and I absolutely love your performance of it.
Thank you.
There's a beautiful connection. We are so thrilled at LA Opera to begin to start to feel the light at the end of the tunnel. Just the fact that we can be in this room together is a big deal. But also, as we've announced in the LA Times, we will be embarking on a production of Oedipus Rex, which will be seeing the light of day very soon. And I think it's an interesting connection between this setting of a text for incidental music to the Oedipus myth and Stravinsky's handling of the same myth, which is epic in proportions. It's a huge, richly orchestrated, beautifully orchestrated piece, challenging in all the ways that you would expect and wonderful in all the ways that you would expect. If you don't remember the Oedipus myth, ask your therapist. They have almost, if you've got a good one, they've heard of it. So with that, we'd like to leave you today. Thanks so much for joining us. Of course, in addition to this upcoming production of Oedipus, there are lots of offerings at laopera.org. There's a digital recitals series, and I'm really thrilled to announce that I partnered with Susan Graham for a recital of all Kurt Weill Cabaret, which is now available until July 1st. You can also see a beautiful recital with Russell Thomas, and that is also available until July 1st. There are also 3 other artists who will be putting together programs, but those are not the only things that we have to offer. There's too much to mention here. If you haven't had the opportunity yet to get vaccinated, please do. Everybody in California, at least, is now eligible who's older than 16. And it's making this possible, and it's going to make it possible for us to see you in the theater itself, which is really our biggest desire and our biggest goal, and we can't wait to see you there. In the meantime, stay happy, stay healthy. If you're vaccinated, you can hang out and jam out with your friends. And in the meantime, stay well. Cheers.